Hello and good morning to everybody. Let me think. So I'd like to do some work on the hands, and bear in mind that we work with leading with the hands and leading with the eyes, and these work together in a number of the exercises. I've made up a little sequence that can be built up. One of the things that I'm interested in, and for a long time I've wanted to work with, is making a sequence, lots of movements, but not necessarily finishing movements in their entirety, but looking at the points that we could say are transition points, or are the same place in the movement. So I'd like to do, maybe if there's time, do a little bit of work on the lion. I've got difficulties here, like everybody, I'm sure, but I've got these lovely beams that snag my hands. So if you see me going down to do some movements, this is how I've adapted to the space. You can ignore that or copy it, whichever. So one of the transitions that I'd like to do is going from the lion to the eagle, which is fairly challenging because it's not something that I normally do, but in this sequence, that's how I want to try and put this together, to try and find some flow. So maybe what I'd like to work on first is enlivening our hands. We've probably all worked with pictures that we could run through. You might be familiar with some of these. So one of the other issues I've got is working out how to set up the camera so that you can see me in different positions, up here and down below. It might be that I move the computer. But we'll start with the hands, and just imagine this warmth in the hands, and if your hands aren't really cold, then when we place one hand above the other, we can feel this warmth radiating between our hands. And I'd like to try and sort of get in touch with that feeling, and imagine it's like a breath going in and out, and yeah, try and grow or foster this this warmth between the hands, and yeah, just try and work with that a little bit. I'm sure you've worked with it before. It might be that you have a ball of fire in your hands or something, and feel this pulsing sort of warmth. Could be breathing in and breathing out. This expansion and contraction. And just play with that a little bit, and just see if you can feel this thing that goes on between the palms, which when we walk in the horizontal, we also feel this between our palms, from our rib cage, from our heart. So just taking this enlivened feeling, opening and closing the hands. When I did work on I think it was an Easter intensive one time, we drew the hands, and it was a revelation to me, with studying the hands, how the hands spiral in and spiral out when we open and close them. And we can see this in lots of movement as well as in nature. So working with these hands, this opening and closing, this softness. It's like an awakening of the hands. We're going to sleep. Awakening and sleeping. Awakening and sleeping. So the other thing that I'd like to do is imagining that our hand is the page in a book, and just imagine that page. It could be the wind that blows the book and a leaf lifts up and turns over. So just play with that and try to thicken your imagination with, you know, this breeze just blowing across the desk and a page in your book just lifting and turning over. Lifting and turning over. I'm interested in the dynamic of nature when we see things like the wind or the waves, and try to use these pictures in our movement. So it's turning over. So it might not be this sort of gradual turning over that's all one speed, but it might have the dynamic of a crashing wave or of the wind as it gusts and lifts things, and trying to smooth out that so that it replicates something more natural. And have a go with the other hand. Page in the book as it flutters over, perhaps. So it might be that you remember doing streaming exercises on the hand and the forearm. We can't do this because we're not able to work together currently, but we have this in plenty of the exercises. The lion is a good example of this. So we can think of something like undoing a toffee in a wrapper, maybe the old-fashioned ones that you pulled apart and they turned as you pulled them. We can use this picture in the lion, and this is the streaming exercise that we might do on the hands, that we would do in pairs when we're together. So this is so when we step into the lion and we have our palms up, and then we imagine this turning from outside, turning the hands over. So we could go into working on the beginning part of the lion. I'll keep coming back to horizontal and work on the sort of the initial going down, because I'll be out of view on the camera when I'm at the bottom. So we can step into the lion and then see this movement turning from outside, and the eyes will turn with that, and eventually the shoulders are turned and we're almost forced down as we look down, and we have the head dropped, relaxed, going down, and then forming the circle around our head. So I'm coming back up to horizontal. So taking this step, palms up, the movement coming from outside, the fingertips turn, the eyes turn, the forearms are turning, the shoulders turn. We feel this weight of the horizontal and it takes us down. Our head is hanging and we form this circle around our head, and then rising up out of it. So transitioning from this lion coming up here, normally we would come up and out and we'd have this expansiveness. And to transition directly to the eagle, which is in this full vertical position with one foot slightly ahead of the other, it's quite challenging, especially for me with these beams above me. But if we imagine coming up out of the lion and this turning of the hands, and then they'll turn to face forwards. And as they turn to face forwards, we'll make sure that our step is this one foot slightly in front of the other in order that we can come through and down for the eagle. So if we go to the beginning of the lion, and we'll see if we can try this transition at the end of the lion going into the eagle. Palms up, movement coming from outside, turning through the hands, the eyes, the head. The shoulders were forced under the weight from the horizontal down into the lion. Rising up out of the lion, turning the palms so that they face forward and making sure one foot is ahead of the other. So back to the lion. We take this step, this open gesture, turning of the fingers, coming from outside, rotating the arms, the head hangs, we're forced down under the weight, and we make this circle around our head, and we lift, and we're drawn up, the hands turn, and face forwards, making sure that we have one foot in front of the other. Okay, so back to starting the lion, and we'll see if we can transition from the lion into the eagle fully through. The open gesture, turning from outside, travelling up the arms, going down, forming that ring around the head. The arms lift first, we're drawn up, the hands turn, and the palms face forwards and into the eagle. And starting with the lion and going through all the way through to the eagle. This open gesture, turning from outside, the gaze drops, we're forced down, the head hangs, we form this ring, the arms rise up, and then we're drawn up. Hands turn, palms forward, and describe the circle of the lion, of the eagle. Rising up and unturning, untwisting that wrapper, coming out of the eagle. Okay, so having worked on those, they're in this little sequence that I've put together, which we could now build up from the beginning and see if we can go a little way with that. So this sequence is going to be in multiples of 3, if I remember where I'm at with the 3s. And we'll just gradually add a piece and add a piece, and eventually we might get to the lion and then transitioning into the eagle. Curl down next, so the hands turn, the eyes, and down into the curl down. Hands turn and up. Back to the beginning. Curl down. And now into the domes. Beginning. Curl down. Into the domes. Now into the lion, twisting that toffee paper until we're forced down. And then back to the beginning. We'll do that another couple of times before we change to the eagle. Curl down. For the lion, twisting all the way up the arms, head bows. So this time we'll run through and add the eagle. Curl down. Into the domes. Into the lion. Into the eagle, palms turned forward. Make sure you've got one foot in front of the other. And into the eagle. Okay, I think we have a little bit of time left. So from the beginning with the eagle. Curl down. Into the domes. Into the lion. Into the eagle. So for the next bit, we start this exercise with a gesture from the long closing, and the last piece I'd like to do is the end part of the long closing, which means that we have to transition from the eagle into the long closing, but in this vertical position. So when we come up from the eagle, we'll come to the top, so that then we can come down for this last gesture of the long closing. So from the beginning. Curling down. Into the domes. And into the lion. Into the eagle. To the vertical. Turn palms and down for the end of the long closing. So 2 more times through. Curling down. Into the domes. Into the lion. Turning the palms forward for the eagle. ready for the long pose. And maybe that takes us up to time. Hope you've all enjoyed that little session.
Charlie, thank you so much. I personally gained a lot from the session, especially the hands, and yeah, there was something in that I really liked. So thank you so much for sharing that. I'm going to unmute everyone, and we can all just feedback a little bit, have a few moments of discussion, and then I'll end the recording after that.
You're coming through like a Dalek for me at the moment.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why that is. Did you want to swap you onto the host or something like that? I don't know if that would help, but
yeah.
Yeah, you sound like Darth Vader.
Oh, yeah. I'll unmute everybody else, and that way we can all have a nice conversation.
Everybody, I've got all your faces on now.
Oh, yeah. Is my sound a little bit better now?
No, it's horrid. I don't know what that's about.
Katie, type it.
Thank you, Charlie. I have to go now.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much, Charlie. That was great.
Yeah.
Great,
That was really useful, Charlie. Thank you.
Ciao. Bye-bye.
That was a good reminder. Yeah. Nice to have a different sequence as well.
Yeah. Well, I've been wanting to do a sequence since my daughter Jeannie, who's coming up for 12, since she was probably about 2, I'd had this idea that relates to Martin's "May wisdom shine through me," and I really liked the way that you could chop up the movements, because we have all these reference points, and they all relate to each other, and I just feel excited about that. But it must have took me 9-10 years to make it happen. And what I would find is that it's hard to remember the bits that you want to put together, and I'd be either sanguine about it, or my anxiety would lead me to just do things randomly, and I found it really difficult to formulate, doing the same movements, because there's so much possibility. And I'd like to infuse people to have a go at working out where there's points of reference between the movements, and instead of taking a movement to its entirety, working out where you can go from one exercise to another. I just find it really exciting. And I hope it's something that other people might like to do their own sequences with. And I'm pretty sure that us practicing comes down to having some meaning, and I think a sequence could offer that. And I think there's a possibility of therapeutic quality of designing a sequence that can work for us, or doing the therapy course. I'm interested in that, to see if I can put together movements for somebody to practice a sequence to help them. Anyway, I've talked enough.
I'm hoping that the Dalek sound is gone, but I really loved what you did today, Charlie.
You're welcome.
Hang on.
Charlie, there's a lot of chat if you've got your chat up.
All right, I'll have a look at that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Is it possible to view them after you've logged out, or?
No, look at it now.
I will save the chat for you, Charlie, and I'll send it through.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah. Edwin Ladaga got in touch with me on that other Friday, but I didn't write down his email or anything, and yeah, I haven't got around to trying to see if I've still got his email from old, but yeah, so it'd be nice to be able to get in touch with people. So
Cool, Charlie, I'll just finish the recording now.
okay,
And then feel free everybody to stay on for a bit more of a chat. But for those that are watching on replay, I'll finish it here.
yeah.
Is my sound better?
Yeah, sound is great now.
Ah, good. I took the Bluetooth headphones off.
Oh,
Awesome session. That's basically all I wanted to say when I sounded like a Dalek. I was like, it was a great session. I really loved it, and I got loads out of it. And exactly what you were saying about creating sequences for specific people, or for me, it comes down a lot to nature and spaces. The spaces are asking for different movement from me,
right.
to heal and help. So that's definitely something that's really exciting. So thank you so much for bringing what you shared today. I'll finish the recording.
Yeah.
Lots of love to everyone who just watched, and yeah, anybody that wants to stay and chat, feel free.
Okay. Ah.